keeping you up to speed on all your Colorado teams. It's time for Coffee Break.
Happy Friday, everybody. It's another beautiful, bright fall day in the Mile High City. And the futures for a handful of our Colorado football teams look pretty bright as well. Most prominently, the Broncos, whose starting quarterback Bo Nix continues to emerge as a potential budding star in the NFL. And the one person who might disagree with me on that notion happens to be sitting next to me today. His name is James Merilatt. James, how are you?
I'm good, Richie. We get to book in the week together.
I know.
Monday
I kind of like
and
it.
Friday.
I like a little Monday, Friday,
Yeah,
and then we revisit it on the next
some
Monday.
Symmetry there.
I like
That's
it.
a bad reputation you're creating for me, that I'm anti-Bo.
I didn't say, see, that's not what I said. I didn't say you were anti-Bo. I said the one person who might disagree with the sentiment that Bo Nix is developing into a potential budding star in the NFL is James Merilatt. I think those are two different things.
Okay. A budding star, I think, is getting a little ahead of ourselves.
So he disagrees.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So he told me it was a misrepresentation and then immediately agreed.
Well, listen, I just get all this heat for being anti-Bo and a Bo
You definitely
hater,
don't bring any of it on yourself.
and
I'll give you that.
I'm not
Yes,
a Bo
I've
hater.
never seen a man who gets more slings and arrows that he didn't ask for than you.
I just catch strays for nothing.
Oh, yeah. No, but in all seriousness, the Broncos are making some noise. Here locally, I think we've been a little bit further ahead of the curve. And in the nationally, I think it seems like people are catching up to the degree that we get the news this morning that the Broncos Chargers game, scheduled for late December, right before Christmas, is being flexed into Thursday night football. It's the first ever Thursday night football flex in NFL history. And I'm curious what you think about it.
Well, it's interesting because we talked on Monday looking ahead at the Broncos schedule. The only for sure difficult game, and as we saw last night in the NFL, there's no layup. But the only game that's not going to be either against a bad team or against teams that are shutting it down is that Chargers game. It's the toughest game remaining on their schedule, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
So I see why they picked it. It's going to should have a big impact on the AFC West in terms of who's going to finish second and wild card positioning and all the rest of it. Moving a game to Thursday, though, like the flex from Sunday afternoon to Sunday night. Okay, you maybe have to change your hotel plans if you're coming down from Cheyenne for a home game or whatever. This is a big change. And a lot of Broncos fans go to LA for that game. So now you were going to go spend that weekend in LA. Now the game's on Thursday. Like, that's just too big of an adjustment. I think that's a bad thing to do to your fans. I don't like this at all. Plus, it's a major disruption in terms of how the game, for the Broncos being the road team on a Thursday, and I know they won on a Thursday night in New Orleans, but the road team on a Thursday night typically is at a disadvantage. We saw it last night with Pittsburgh. I just think that's a very bad deal for the Broncos.
I'll just come out and say it. I hate it. I hate the move, and I hate it for not all of the same reasons you just said. Because if I'm just going to be honest, which I truly try to be, I really don't care about the fan angle. I understand that it's inconvenient.
Come on, Richie.
But no, I've said it. I'm like pro billionaire in these situations. I was move the stadium. I was, but like, oh, then people are going to have to commute out to DA. I don't
have a problem with that.
I don't
you
care
can
about
plan
that.
for that.
I don't care about, you know what I mean? Like ticket prices go up. Okay. They're going to go up anyways.
I get
Beer's
it.
expensive. I got it.
If you bought a ticket to a movie tonight, it's Friday night.
This is actually great because I have tickets to see Gladiator 2 tonight, and they are in jeopardy.
You bought a ticket for the movie tonight at 8 o'clock at the old AMC, and you just get a notification on your phone. Hey, start time's been moved to 4:45, and you got to work till 5. Sorry, out of luck. Don't give a crap about the fan. Don't give a crap about the person coming. We just decided to do it because AMC's a billionaire, and we can do whatever in the heck we want. You don't think
what am I going to do about it?
You're treating your customers like crap. At some point,
that's capitalism, James.
If you keep treating your customers like crap, at some point, and I know this sounds crazy, nobody wants to hear this, but at one point in America, horse racing and boxing were the two biggest sports. You treat your customers like crap. Why is boxing a sport that now, unless it's some sort of gimmick, you never hear anything about?
They stopped doping and cheating.
Because at one point, when I was a kid, everybody in the world knew who the heavyweight champion of the world was.
Yeah, it was stop everything.
Then you got the alphabet soup where there's the IBF and the WBC and the WBA, and nobody knew who was the champ, and it became a mess, and the best fighters didn't fight, and how long did it take for Mayweather and whoever to fight each other, Pacquiao, and it's just like, I'm done with it. You move on to something else. NFL keeps treating their customers like crap, customers will eventually go somewhere else.
I disagree. I think the NFL is invincible. They are the
no company's invincible.
They are the debts.
Tell that to Blockbuster.
Nope. They are you're going to compare Blockbuster, who went under because of the emergence of Netflix and Hollywood Video, to the NFL.
Yes.
The NFL is Netflix.
No, it's not.
The NFL is Netflix,
You're,
Amazon Prime, Peacock, and all of it put together. The NFL is the Death Star without a stupid trap door that shouldn't have existed only because it was a movie.
If somebody came up with, and I don't even know what it would be, but just play with my theory here. If somebody came up with something in the course of 3 hours, rather than watching one NFL game, you could watch 6 of this version of it and bet on 6 times as many games as you did watching one 3-hour game between the Bengals and the Browns. Nobody's invincible.
James, until proven otherwise, they're invincible.
You know what makes the company go under? Thinking they're invincible. That makes you go under.
That's not even. I didn't even want to go down this wormhole, but because you made me do the whole pro billionaire thing, which I stand by. I just am because
you're pro screwing the fans.
If I was in their shoes, I might do the same thing. That's all. I'm just being real.
Okay, I mean that's fine.
But the reasons I hate it have nothing to do.
Pick a dime.
Yeah, the reasons I hate it have nothing to do with the fans. Although again, the fact that it's right before Christmas does kind of suck. Like, hey, we're going to LA for for the family for Christmas to watch the Broncos game.
Heading out to Wally World.
Psych. But I hate it from a competitive standpoint for the Broncos because let's not forget they had to approve this. You cannot. It is a rule that the NFL, the one thing they actually don't allow themselves to do is force a team to play 2 Thursday night games. They have all the power in the world, and they said, we can't force you to do this. So the Broncos chose to allow this to happen. The NFL asked if they'd be willing to do this, and Sean Payton and the Broncos said, yes, thumbs up. We will play a second Thursday night road game in the same season. And I hear the people out there who say that the proximity that the bye week has to this game makes a difference. I don't understand the correlation there at all. It's 2 weeks before. There's people who I saw it out on social media and it was being written about that they can prepare for the Chargers during that. They can spend some of the time during the bye week preparing for the Chargers before and then spend the week of the Colts game preparing for the Colts. But then you're telling me that your best logical solution is to look ahead of an opponent for a week and then circle back and then go forward. What are we doing?
It's problematic any way you look at it.
It's stupid. Thursday night games, by and large, the players don't like them because you got to get in 2 different car wrecks in a span of 4 days on your body. And it's on the road. If it was a home game, would I still like it? No. But I like it a lot less having to go on the road.
Well, they play Sunday here against the Colts, and on Wednesday, they got to get on a plane and fly to LA.
Yeah.
So that gives them Monday and Tuesday to really get ready for that game. 2 days that normally are doing nothing and off day. Now that's your 2 prep days. I don't care if you prepped for it 10 days earlier as a coaching staff. Who cares?
Yeah. The players that have to go out there and play are going to be beat up and tired.
And things can change in 2 weeks. I mean,
and there's also the people that say like, well, are you factoring in that the team that got flexed out is the Bengals Browns game? So the Bengals team that you're going to have to play next doesn't get the same amount of rest and preparation that they did before because now they're going to have to play. They get less time to prepare for you. I don't care.
They get a normal week.
And they get it exactly.
They don't
exactly. And again, all of this comes down to the fact that your alternative, because you weren't forced to do anything, was just play regular Sunday games and take regular preparation weeks.
I don't get why the Broncos would do it other than they're trying to be a good partner, right? And be like, hey.
Oh, yeah, Sean Payton, who's given the middle finger to the league for his entire career.
I'm just saying, maybe it's the Walton Penner Group trying to be a good partner of, hey, we have this rule in place. We're the first ones or one of the first ones getting asked to do it. We want to set the precedent of like, let's do what's best for the league. And it's better for the league to have Broncos Chargers on Thursday night than it is to have Browns Bengals. It just is. It just is.
Yeah, and I'll say this: that
LA market,
that Bengals. I mean, when you factor market size into it, you're never going to lose that argument. But you want to talk about a good, just like the potential for a good football game. Do I think the Chargers Broncos game is going to be a good game? Yeah, these are 2 like 3, 4, 5 loss win teams by this time of the year, fighting for second place in the division and a wild card spot behind the Chiefs. I think it's going to be a great game, but the Bengals still have Joe Burrow at quarterback, who's having an unbelievable year on an awful team. He reminds me of Drew Brees with the Saints for a handful of years there, where they were going 4-12 every year, but he was throwing for 5,500 yards and 40 touchdowns. And the Browns, with Jameis Winston at quarterback, can be pretty entertaining. He gives them way more life on. I know they're a 2-win team.
3 now.
Now. Yeah, I know they're a 3-win team, and their third win came in some pretty ridiculous circumstances.
Yeah.
Weather-wise, but AFC North games, regardless of what the team's records are or what their dynamics are, that's a division that plays each other pretty intensely. So I don't think that it's that bad of a game potentially to flex out. Regardless, it just doesn't make sense to me why you would go out of your way to potentially give yourself what could end up being a disadvantage.
Well, it's a huge disadvantage. So it was there's a couple of reasons. Maybe you were trying to be a good partner. I don't think anybody, when you're fighting for a playoff spot, you're not trying to be a good partner.
Right.
I think we want to show off. We haven't had a lot of national games.
Sure.
We want to show off who we are. We want to get back into that mix, right? They had the Thursday night game earlier against the Saints. They got Monday night coming up here against the Browns.
Week after, yep.
And
Next.
that's it. That's their only national games. They got a bunch of 205 kickoffs.
Yeah, no, but let me, because I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to bring that up too. And my counter question to you is, since the start of October, do we really think that Bo Nix hasn't gotten a lot of shine?
Agreed.
He's been on every CBS Sports graphic on social media I've seen for 3.5 weeks.
Agreed.
He's getting all the love. Colin Cowherd is waxing poetic about him.
Well, and the best way to get a lot of primetime games next year is make the playoffs this year. So why do anything to hurt yourself in that regard? But that's a potential theory.
This is a team that thus far has done, in my opinion, a great job of outpacing and outperforming what their general expectations were nationally and even here locally to a certain degree. So to go out of your way, it's almost like what I think that the angle could be is I think that this could be an example of some hubris from Sean Payton of saying, like, I think I can do it. I went in there on Thursday night and spanked the Saints. I can do that on a short week. Yeah, they got our goose when they came here to town on a Sunday, but I'm good for it. Bo's better now than he was before. Because
maybe, but here's the other thing is when you look at the schedule moving forward, right? And the 4 teams that are kind of competing for the final wildcard spot. I'm assuming the Chargers are going to finish ahead of the Broncos. This might change that, but right, it's the Dolphins. They got some ground to make up. It's the Colts. The Broncos play the Colts here. The Bengals are lurking. They don't have a very difficult schedule, save for the Steelers. So that game, you
try to buy some extra prep time for the Bengals.
Well, it flips, right? So instead of the Bengals having 11 days to get ready for you and you having 7 days to get ready for them, now it's the other way around. You get 11 days to prep for the Bengals. They get 7 to prep.
And for the record, it would not surprise me at all because of who Sean Payton is and the way that he has spoken about his process, about the way that he thinks our league operates. That he would be trying to play a little 4D chess with some of this.
Exactly. Well, and here's the other part of that. You've already played the Chargers, so you're not prepping from scratch. The Chargers right now are pretty much what they were then. The Broncos right now are not what they were back then. So it's harder for the Chargers to prep for this version of the Broncos than it is for the Broncos to prep for this version of the Chargers.
I don't know, man. I just don't
logic.
like it. I understand the chess, not checkers argument, but sometimes when all you're being asked to do is play checkers, it's okay to just play checkers really well.
With you.
You know?
I'm with you. Sometimes when you try to be the smartest person in the room, you end up looking like a fool. They may have outthought themselves on this one, but I think all those things were a factor. I think the advantage in the Bengals game is number 1. I think the fact that they think it gives them the advantage in the Chargers game is 2, showing off who they are and getting some, primetime exposure, 3, and being a good partner is 4. They're all on the list. To your credit,
because one option that our guy Mike Kliss and I've seen put out there as a potential, maybe not like front forward facing reason, but implicit reason, was giving the players and their staff a few extra days of family time right before the holidays, right?
Oh my God.
If that is a reason, I'm going to go the opposite of the way I went with you with the Michael Malone missing a game thing. If that factored into it in a positive way at all, bah humbug. Get out of here with the I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You got to play on Thanksgiving. You got to play on Christmas now because the NFL is invincible and they can take over every holiday.
Yeah.
You got to do it.
if that's part of the equation, I had my 4 reasons, and you can make an argument for those 4.
And I'm not making that up. It was put out there as like that could be potential.
That is absurd. I would be, come on. You got a chance to break the streak of losing seasons, which I think they'll have broken by then anyway. You have a chance of breaking the streak of non-playoff seasons, which the only team worse than you is the freaking New York Jets. You have a chance to break that, and you're going to go, for one of the important games, maybe the most important game on the schedule, the toughest game on the schedule, let's put ourselves at a disadvantage so we can go hang with Santa. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, no, listen, I'm not saying it's not like it's been reported that that's a reason.
Oh my
or whatever, but it was mentioned as a potential benefit or a potential this, and I was like, Cole, for all of you, 100%. I'll deliver it myself.
Listen, if you want Christmas off, go get a different job. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
I agree with you.
It's the same argument I had. Listen, this makes Michael Malone's thing look like not a big deal at all. But if you want to go to every one of your kids' high school events, get a different job. Don't be an NBA head coach. Go work at Best Buy. You know what? You'll have every night off. Like,
true.
That's how it works. If that is 1% factor in this decision, everybody who made the decision should be fired.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown, and with great power comes great responsibility.
I didn't think you could upset me today.
You get a lot of perks and all that, and it comes with sacrifices like we all have to make. I don't know. I just saw it put out there as a potential benefit, or I
have to check my blood pressure after this. That is ridiculous.
when it comes to the Raiders game this weekend, I'm excited. I'm going to be there. And I think that this is what should be a winnable game for the Broncos. I'm tempted. I just stopped myself just now from saying very winnable, because again, I have to remember that the Broncos are out kicking their coverage a little bit with what teams typically experience with a rookie quarterback, and their offense has not shown yet to be what we saw against the Falcons, like on a week in and week out basis, like they have kind of on the defensive side of the ball. So I think it's a winnable game, but I do feel like it's worth acknowledging that while the Raiders season has not gone very positively, they have game wreckers on both sides of the ball. Max Crosby is a dog, and he has had the Broncos number for a significant amount of games during that losing stretch of seasons before they just ended it this year for them when it was 8 in a row. And kind of like quietly in a way, Brock Bowers is making just as good of a case to win Rookie of the Year as Jayden Daniels and Bo Nix. He's going to break Ditka's record. He is he might be the best tight end at the position. I know.
Who said that's who the Broncos should use the number 12 overall pick on?
But you were wrong, because James, you were wrong, because if the draft happened again today, Bo Nix might go 2nd overall in the draft. Brock Bowers would not.
For crying out loud.
James.
All I'm saying is,
James, do you know who would go number 1 overall if the draft happened again today? Over Jayden Daniels?
Yes.
You're out of your mind.
Of course he would.
You're out of your mind.
NFL GMs would look at it and go, well, Matt Eberflus and the people in Chicago are incompetent.
I agree with that.
That's not going to.
I agree with that. And I think Caleb Williams, when he gets an offensive staff behind him that's geared toward his development and not this hodgepodge disaster.
Bo Nix would be the 4th quarterback pick.
Disagree. Okay. I think Jayden Daniels would go 1.
You think he'd go ahead of Caleb Williams?
Yes, because
you're
you
insane,
only
Richie.
you're using the hindsight that you have through 12 weeks of a season.
Through 11
and Caleb
games.
has looked bad.
For 11, fine. One guy's getting
Jayden
coached
has looked
by
amazing.
Sean Payton and this staff, and is getting put in a good position to win. The other guy's being coached by a guy who's about to get fired. It doesn't change the evaluation of what you saw leading up to the draft.
It does.
11 games?
It does.
Oh, okay. Well, if you're a GM and before the draft you had Caleb Williams rated here and Bo Nix rated here, and 11 games in, you're going to change him? You should get another. You should go work at Best Buy.
If you're the ownership group in the front office of the Chicago Bears, you thought when you drafted Caleb Williams, he was going to look like Jayden Daniels and Bo Nix do right now. You thought he was going to do that, and he hasn't. And so you're either going to say, if you had the chance to redo it all over again, you would say, we're going to roll the same dice and think it's going to be different.
A year and a half ago.
Or we're going to take a guy that we've seen play better than Caleb and try to make it happen here.
Less than 2 years ago, Sean Payton said, the thing that's going to turn the NFL into a draft lottery is Caleb Williams, because people are going to tank for him. That's how high he was on Caleb Williams.
He was in the same class as Trevor Lawrence and Andrew Luck.
If they were redrafting it and Caleb Williams and Bo Nix were on the board, you know who Sean Payton would take? Caleb freaking Williams.
I disagree.
Oh my God.
He liked Jaden Daniels better. He liked Jaden. He said it.
Oh my God. Like, how much Kool-Aid do you drink in a day that's orange? I mean,
I'm more
Richie.
of a blue Kool-Aid guy, but I mix in a little orange.
And listen, see, now I'm going to be a Bo Nix hater again.
Yeah, well, I said you were to start the show. So in some ways, the prophecy manifests.
This is okay. All right.
James, it's crazy to think that when in a league where it's so hard to find and develop a true franchise quarterback, if you're an NFL team and you made a pick at one of those quarterbacks and 12 weeks into the season, you realize your quarterback is performing fourth or so out of the 6 that were drafted, and you get a chance to go do it all over again, and you would choose to roll the same dice with the same people instead of taking a guy who you watched play very well for another team and say, hey, let's try it with that guy and see if we can recreate it. You should go work at Best Buy.
Okay, here. I'll just make my argument again, because you talked about how Brock Bowers has just as good a chance or starting to gain on Jaden Daniels.
He's unbelievable.
Okay.
He's what we in Broncos country foolishly thought Greg Dulcich would be, and he's what everyone thought Kyle Pitts would be right out the gate. Kyle Pitts is still good. I maintain that.
So again, I'm going to go back to my argument. Would you rather have Russell Wilson,
no,
Brock Bowers, and Stephon Diggs, or Bo Nix?
No, I'd rather have Bo Nix, because as we saw last night, Best Buy's got
Russell more free plugs in this show.
As we saw last night, Russell Wilson can't win in the snow game, and when you're playing outdoors in Colorado,
he threw the go-ahead touchdown in a blizzard. That was a dime. Okay, so
today's show is brought to you by the letter L.
Okay, so wait a minute.
Russell Wilson has 2 L's.
You're moving the goalpost again, because you just like
in his first name. 3 if you count all of them.
Just like
which is how many losses their team has on the season.
So when he loses, it's about wins and losses. When he wins, it's about stats. Because when he beats the Ravens, a team that Bo Nix lost 41-10.
When he beats the Ravens by kicking 6 field goals.
Okay, so again, it's about the stats. It's not about that
he won. That's not the stats. That's about the scoring.
Last night, when he played great in the snow, it's about the loss. Well, that's really freaking convenient. Pick whichever thing makes your argument. Mm-hmm. When he wins, we downgrade it because he didn't have the stats. When he loses with the stats, because the defense can't make a play.
History is written by the victor. So I will choose to backfill my wins.
So the first 4 weeks when he won,
I think I just had a Jameis Winston moment there where I threw a phrase that had nothing to do with anything into casual conversation.
And now he's 4-1 and he's on an 8-3 team, and they're still leading their division. But now we're telling me it's about wins and losses. All right, I just can't keep up with which way we can conveniently bash Russell Wilson carousel, that we just spin the wheel. But yet you're like, you know what you are? You're like the roulette wheel that has the magnet in it. You just spin the roulette wheel for, how do we bash Russell Wilson? You get to stop it wherever you want to based on whatever happened. Like, they win a game against the Ravens team that the Broncos lost to by 31 points.
I told you I'm pro-billionaire, and you think I'm going to be offended by you telling me that I'm the house and the house always wins?
Gosh. It's just,
I feel like that's the best compliment I could have been given.
Dealing from the bottom of the deck here, Richie.
Regardless, even beyond this season is actually the main reason why I want Bo Nix over Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is nearing the end of his ride on the bus. He is. Bo Nix is just getting on. And whether it was Bo Nix, if they drafted J.J. McCarthy, you know what I'd be saying? I want J.J. McCarthy. If it was Drake May, I'd want Drake May, who I actually think I was second lowest on besides Michael Penix.
Brock Bowers is a generational tight end. We'll see if Bo Nix is a generational
How good is a generational tight end long-term for a team if he has nobody throwing in the ball?
I don't know. It's hard to come up with one, right? But Travis Kelce's been a generational tight end. He's been pretty effective. Antonio Gates was.
He only had like Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes.
Shannon Sharp was.
Who threw balls from John Elway?
And Brian Greasy and Trent Dilfer and a bunch of other guys.
But John
Elway. 90-plus yard touchdown from Trent Dilfer against the Raiders in the playoffs. But, I think that player in that
fine,
position
James.
can
you
want
to listen. You want to build a house.
The Broncos would be 6.
You want to build a house starting with the stucco and the crown molding when we don't have a foundation underneath. Our basement is leaking and we've got moldy floors. And you're like, should we get new blinds?
Here's the deal: they'd be 6-5 with Jarrett Stidham. So
I don't even think Jarrett Stidham should be allowed
they'd
to
be
be a backup quarterback.
They'd be 6-5 with Jarrett Stidham based on what I've seen. So I will
I
take
completely
Russell
disagree.
Wilson, Brock Bowers,
I completely
and
disagree.
$20 million to spend on free agent wide receivers and or running backs. Wow. Solved all three problems in one fell swoop. But instead, we'd rather have right-handed Tebow that you think is the generational player.
Right-handed Tebow? He threw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, you know who threw for 316 yards in a playoff game against the number 1 defense in the league?
Tim Tebow.
Tim Tebow. Left-handed Tebow did. So right-handed Tebow's going to have a good game or two.
He's had more than a good game or two. He's been rookie of the month. He's been offensive player of the week. He's been rookie of the week. He's almost in the lead for rookie of the year.
Okay.
Tim Tebow never did that, or left-handed.
Tim Tebow won just as many rookie of the weeks as Bo Nix has. Like Bo Nix tied his record.
Bo Nix has 6 weeks left in the season.
Well, we'll see how those go. That Thursday night game in LA isn't going to help.
Yeah, I agree. We actually agree on that. That's how we started it, and maybe that's a good place to park the Broncos conversation, because we had a pretty big Buffs announcement yesterday that I think has massive ramifications on the future of the program in general and Coach Prime's future here in Boulder. And JuJu Lewis going on the Pat McAfee show and putting on the CU beanie. Again, just another thing you can add to the list of things that if you had told me were going to happen, if you had told me 2 years ago were going to happen in just a couple of years, I would have given you any amount of money you wanted to bet against it. And it's just another, slap in the face in a good way, reminder of how great things are going up in Boulder. Do you think that the commitment of JuJu Lewis is the nail in the coffin, cementing that Coach Prime is going to be here in Boulder and back up the things he's been saying with his kickstand down for a handful of years after this season, now that Shedeur will be leaving?
I think it takes it from being a 65-35 equation to a 90-10 equation.
What's the 10?
Jerry Jones offers him $25 million a year and 10%
but
of the
he's
Cowboys.
already said he doesn't like going to the
I know,
NFL.
but there's an offer. There's always an offer.
You just saying everybody has a price?
I mean, if somebody said, hey, we'll give you 10% of the franchise, never going to happen.
Yeah.
But if he did,
just tell me where to hide the body.
A fool not to take it, right? So that's the 10%. The 10% ain't going to happen. I think it'd be very tempting after you're done coaching your son. You have a very successful year. Let's say they make the playoff and lose in the semis. Let's just say. And Shedeur is going to be the first pick. Travis is the second pick. You turn the program around and you're looking at it saying, we don't have a quarterback. We might not win 3 games next year. See ya. Mm-hmm. But if you got a quarterback, all of a sudden you're like, hey, we can repeat this. We can build something here. You have to have that position taken
care of. It is the quarterback. JuJu is now the piece that Coach Prime can use to replicate the model in the transfer portal that he used to bring all those players to Jackson State and then to CU, because now you're going to get wide receivers from all over the country, regardless of the recruiting pipelines, who are going to be like, hey, wait a second, I can go catch passes from that kid.
Correct.
Absolutely.
That's the biggest thing, though. He is a kid. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of younger than most college recruits. So that's the part of it that you never quite know. But...
And listen, just as Coach Prime in the last couple of years has masterfully just raided the transfer portal and plucked some of the best talent from all over the country and from other schools who put in the hard work to recruit and get those commitments. It could happen to CU in a sense of if they underperform, transitioning from a team that was bedrocked by Shedeur and Travis, if they underperform in a first year with JuJu, and again, a young kid who's impressionable and who has a totally different mindset on things than you or I or other kids on the team might be like, hey, you know what? I can transfer. I can go to Georgia.
Yeah.
Georgia wants me to come now. And then a year later, we're looking at a whole different situation. I don't think that's going to happen. But
I just don't think Prime gets a kid like that to flip unless he's planning on being there.
Yeah.
And I don't think the kid flips unless he's pretty darn sure Prime is going to be there.
Right. And I think that's a smart move for both parties to have those it's like mutually assured destruction you can't leave me because I can't leave you.
Right.
But the bedrock of all good relationships, force.
It was a big day for the Buffs, right? This season has been a ton of fun. I think everybody needs to just bask in the next 3 or 4 weeks because you never know when this Haley's Comet is going to come by again. Mm-hmm. But the news we got yesterday suggests maybe it's not a Haley's Comet.
Yeah.
That's the most encouraging thing about
it. Because Prime securing life after Shedeur and Travis as a coach is putting CU now on the level in terms of their process that the elites of college football follow. For every year that Clemson has a Trevor Lawrence, there's a Deshaun Watson before that. For every year that Alabama has a Jalen Hurts, there's a Tua Tagovailoa waiting in the wings. You reload, and reloading at quarterback allows you to better reload in the trenches and build outward from there. So CU getting that first step to doing that, now it's just a matter of can they continue to do it and build outward with the rest of the team like they were able to do so well thus far. So yesterday was full of good juju, pun intended. Does the good juju for the Buffs keep rolling this weekend against Kansas in a situation where CU is primed and the runway, the lights are on for them to go to the Big 12 title game?
Yep.
They've just got to not trip up. And I think that's a fantastic but can be dangerous position for teams to be in because they're going to be favored the rest of the way. A team like Kansas, who was a preseason top 20 kind of pick that has just underperformed, but still has solid talent, especially in the offensive side of the ball. In the run game, their quarterback. I think that CU has earned the benefit of the doubt to handle teams that are less than, and they have enough talent to kind of overcome, upset bids and things like that and avoid the sleeping giant. But it still makes me nervous in the same way that the Raiders have playmakers on both sides of the ball for the Broncos.
It's not a cupcake, and every game should make you nervous, right? If you're a Buffs fan, especially now. It's
all Kansas has done, by the way, the last 2 weeks is knock out good teams in the Big 12.
BYU.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, you're right there. Don't blow it. So there's reason to be nervous. I do think the fact that it's at Arrowhead is a benefit because the one thing that has been a kryptonite for this CU team so far this year has been going into a hostile environment. It got them at Nebraska, right? They fell behind early, couldn't dig out of the hole. It almost got them at Texas Tech, holding Texas Tech to a couple field goals, and that was 13-0 at the end of the first quarter instead of 21-0 was a big difference because that place was at a fever pitch, and they're throwing tortillas and going nuts, and it took the Buffs a while to adjust.
The stupid
If this was on campus, there's a different vibe. The fact that it's at Arrowhead, it's a lot like UCF. UCF plays at the Gator Bowl or Citrus Bowl or whatever it is. It's different.
Yeah.
That's what I think this one's going to be.
Like I said, in the same way that I said that, hey, like with the Raiders, Max Crosby on the defensive side, dog. Brock Bowers has a legitimate case to win Rookie of the Year. Kansas, regardless of what their record says, that kid, Devin Neal, the running back for Kansas, he is a baller. He has the program record, the school record at Kansas for rushing yards in a career and rushing touchdowns.
All I heard was how good UCF's
season.
running game was, and all we heard during the entire Texas Tech broadcast was how good that running back was, and it took him 40 carries, it felt like, to finally get his 100 yards.
I got you. Listen, I think CU's going to win. Spoiler alert, because the last thing I want to wrap up here is with predictions. I think CU's going to win, and I think the Broncos are going to win. I am just, in my core, I think I'm a paranoid person. When my team is the lights are green, things are rolling, and all the only person who can really beat you is you.
Yep.
I get nervous in those situations for the teams that I am rooting for. So I'll start with it to close out the show because I want to get your predictions. I think the Broncos win. I don't think they've had a lot of wins by 14 plus points this season. I actually don't think this is one. I think this might be a little bit more back and forth. I'm going to say the Broncos win 31-21.
I think you're about right. I don't think they get to 31. I don't know that.
And if it was 28-17,
I think it's a 24-14 game.
Yeah.
I can't get out of my mind though that Gardner Minshew throwing a first and goal, unbelievably bad interception when they were about to go up 17-3.
Right. Could have changed the entire game.
Could have changed the whole season.
Yep.
So they're dangerous, but I think the Broncos get kind of an ugly win.
To your credit, the Broncos team that played the Raiders and won that ugly game early in the season is not the same Broncos team now. I think Nick Bonito is going to be a lot more on Gardner Minshew's radar now than he was back then. So we'll agree. Decent, but potentially, maybe not the sexiest Broncos win left on the calendar. I'm good there. And I think the Buffs win. And even though I say there's trap game potential here, I also think there's potential for CU to just run away with this. And I could see this being like a a 17 plus 20 plus point victory.
They've worked too hard to get themselves in this spot. They're not going to overlook KU.
They're just so talented.
The fact that Kansas has the 2 big wins makes it really easy for Coach Prime and everybody to say, hey, we can't overlook this team.
Yeah.
If they were 2-8,
Right.
that would be more
Sure.
difficult, but I think CU goes out and wins. I think they win by a couple touchdowns.
All right. Well, it's going to be exciting. Can't wait to see how it unfolds. This is like a fun time of the year, around the holidays, because you got, Avs and Nugs are kind of like not just starting. Things are starting to roll in a little bit, having double-digit games. The Broncos are playing meaningful games finally this time of year, and the sky's the limit for the Buffs. So can't wait to react to it all on Monday, and I will see you again on that day. So James, thank you so much again for hanging out with me. To the rest of you out there, thank you so much for joining us, making us a small part of your day. I see all your comments loading up there. Please feel free to keep continuing to chime in. We love hearing from you, and we will see you again next week.
We love Best Buy.
Brought to you by Best Buy.